where the deputy mayor positions were you want to rotate the deputy mayor position, or the third option is that the deputy mayor is elected by council at the first meeting of the new council. So those three options. And Madam Mayor, can I make one other suggestion?
Each model, but you know, it's a new council and a new run. A lot of respect to how the deputy mayor was chosen, and the only way you could become deputy mayor was if you were a councillor at large. So, and that wasn't equitable for the rest.
And also the procedure itself. Well, from my perspective, while they're not voting for the deputy mayor, they are voting for the councillor. It's worth about that.
Deputy mayor for two?
Self-serving, right?
It's not just for you, it's for future.
For future council, but my thoughts on it, I do know St. John did change to voting, but St. John had a very specific there's a benefit in having a longer standing term to be able to have people comfortable in the position. So that would be my sense. But I'm comfortable with the highest votes. I think we don't have an issue here because we don't have the award system. So it's not like, you know,
the community works well for the representation here at the table, and we've had some really incredible deputy mayors. And I think Erin, once Erin gets her feet under her, she's going to be a good one as well. So why change if it works? Why change it?
Thank you, Councillor Day. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
I agree. The way it is, I think we should listen to the community. But again, I wouldn't have a problem with voting deputy mayor. I would be
This is the first reading. Council, what I was suggesting to you is I'll make these edits for the next council meeting. You can go back, is this really what you want? And then you can either affirm it or say, you know, I rethought something. and we'll do the second, and then we'll advertise, because on third reading will be the second meeting in July, so there's ample. Wondering, are there any changes that council wants to that? Land acknowledgement is there. We've changed the time to 7 o'clock. Is council good with this? Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd also like to recommend council that this doesn't show up here, but as we go forward, items, like to say we get 4 or 5 pieces of correspondence. We get requests from government officials.
To highlight that in the new agenda, there's what they've been doing, what initiatives they've been helping to move forward, and yes, please.
So the province has been very clear, the legislation is very clear, is that information. In the closed session, the province is very clear, no information session, and the legislation is very clear. Only one of these 10 categories is something able to be discussed. And we do track them here so that we respect to Mr. Speaker here is that the federal government, provincial government would be as transparent as we.
Yeah, sometimes it's, it's not, sometimes it's difficult and uncomfortable, but we need to public session, we're asking all these questions in public session.
Because they're hearing our discussion. Discussing something and there's nobody except yourselves, but you already had discussions about it to begin with. So I really like this.
Glad to hear that.
And I really like the changes. I mean, I don't like to get the community to understand more about what's going on here. That's a good thing.
I think the more, oh, sorry.
I'll just have to say, going back to questions and stuff that was brought up, I hope council still has the same level of curiosity in April before the next election.
Yes, that's why I said difficult and uncomfortable, but must be done, right? But I think the more transparency there is in how we come to the decisions that we come to generates trust with. The Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield allocate funding for the position of CFO with the imperative to hire a CFO as soon as reasonably possible. And this motion before we go to discussion.
Yeah, we currently have an accounting clerk, and then we have an accountant who provides consulting services on an occasional basis. As a new person here, I was a little startled with a budget of $8 million. That's the extent of the financial support that council has. And there's some, long-term planning items, projects that should be done. Some of the stuff needs to be done annually. Some of the stuff needs to be done every 3, 4, 5 years. And also, there's just reporting instruments and stuff like that that council should have on an ongoing basis. There should be information available. However, if council need decisions about how they're going to invest taxpayer dollars, they need the information to support it. And the question isn't always about how much does it cost to invest in it. The question is also how much are we going to lose by not investing in it. And at this point, I think the cost of investing in it is less than the cost of not doing it. And some of the projects that we need to look at is, a comprehensive municipal information system. Most municipalities have a system, everything from work orders and works and parks to dog tags. And and you look it up, and the department heads just need to click on the report generating button to know, that they've got an emergency and where is the money going to come from. They can identify that. We contract out a lot of work. We really control is one issue. I forgot the squeaky clean shades and shades green. Fantastic jobs. They do an incredible job. I think our community looks fantastic. But are we, on a value basis? Institutional development. And I think having someone with the accounting know-how to figure out, the cost benefit of, do we discontinue fees? Do we maintain fees? What do we do? We need someone with a different tool set. We really should be having a 3-year operating budget. Right now, council goes from year to year. This looks right. But what about frankly, in my seat, I'm a little bit nervous. I think you tell the guys, or if you ask the leadership team, I'm a little twitchy about a long-term financial plan, looking at operations, looking at capital, looking at all these things together, and especially how do they fit with council's strategic plan, debenture management, budget development, leadership. I could go on with some more things. But really, I see a huge hole here. We had the consultants in, made the presentation, they identified the same large hole. I'm asking council to plug the hole.
Any other questions or discussions on the motion?
New council and the new mayor. The questions that all came out during our orientation and during the first council meeting, this council meeting, they've all been questions that a lot of the questions wouldn't have appeared. And we had the types of information that you and the amount of questions and the amount of time. Agencies for our leadership team of council.
Was this a huge Bay-Westfield approved Yes, oh, that's. The new mayor is a little rusty on the procedure.
You only learn by making mistakes.
Well, I'm. Do we have any further discussion or questions on the motion now? We're actually allowed to have discussion or. Okay, contrary mind? If possible. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do we have any questions on or discussion on the motion?
We get this done cheaper out of the whole area, this kind of work, one machine, or?
I don't know what. John, can you,
The tanker, yes, no, so there's no warranty on it, or? No, there is no warranty. Well, there.
Procedural one. With those.
do you have any more questions on the motion? Yes?
We do email calls
Yes.
for issues like that, but again, that's still a 24, 36 hour
Yeah.
delay. And I do know
For council. Development Incentive Grants, Millennium Estates, River Valley Drive. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve this agreement in principle between the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield and 697800 NB Corp. For a residential property based on the current determined post-construction by Service New Brunswick. The grant would equal $193,725 with annual grant payments between $49,850 and $27,675 over 5 years, and if qualified by completion of NB Power New Home Energy Savings Program reimbursement of building permit fees. May I have a motion? Thank you. And second, thank you very much. We have a discussion on the motion. Any questions?
I really hope that this happens. And we're looking at ways to keep seniors.
Day. Do we have any other comments? The procurement policy. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Day. A second. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do we have any questions on the motion?
Maybe just a bit of a brief description of what the procurement policy will do, just to.
Okay. John, do you want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, first off, I want to thank the CEO in Hampton. They did all the hard work this past to build this policy, and basically I just swapped out Hampton for Bay-Westfield, so I want to thank Richard for that. It's designed to do two things: help us be nimble as an money is being spent the way it should be spent, and two, not the time council's time. I think that kind of summarizes it in a nutshell. It's a little bit more than that, but I think that's the nutshell version.
More quickly, you mentioned that Hampton, is this similar to other like other municipalities have similar type?
Yeah, it's very similar. Like I said, Hampton did this. Richard's comment was basically they just grabbed it out of the Procurement Act and put it in regarding municipalities.
Like, so just how kind of how I would mesh with the provincial procurement act, because I know we have to do it for the whole procurement process and do a certain amount, but before that we're able to make our own policy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, and if I just say comment, because we were bound by, I think we had 3 different trade agreements we had to watch out for. So sometimes it got a bit complicated. I took a simple route. What's the minimum threshold for any one of them? And I just went with that.
We have any further questions on the policy? I just like to point out that I like that you've articulated the funds transfer.
I'm just, it's exciting.
Fun. Farewell to signing checks before I go electronic.
Can I just address that, please? People may be concerned. You know, having to review the list and stuff.
Yeah, there's still that layer of accountability, even based on each one.
Yeah.
Oh, darn. Here's your sensitive bench.
All right, if there are no further questions, do we all in favor? Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is carried. We are on 2020. The motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield receive and file the report. The report is to be made available per Local Governance Act 2017 .ca and
I thank Nicole. She put all the pictures in, made it look nice, she formatted it. The leadership team provided the photos that you see and some of the information. Friendly that you can look at it, and the information will be easy to read right at a glance through maps, graphs, and tables. So that
today.
I have one question. Cost, such as snow, and people don't stop to think of the costs associated even to running the. As counselors were paid, and expenses in that. But I have a question that came through that per diem and reviewing this document. And so my question. And expenses. Can you come back to this table and put in for your per diem and expenses? I think Bill could really relate on how sometimes people milk the system.
there's no double deputy counselor,
Okay.
not permitted at all. If I may share, I had an incident where I had a member of the board that I was chairing who received per diem from the organization which I was chairing, and then from their local municipality, we terminated them from the board.
Good.
No double deputy.
Good.
So,
That's good. Don't know. So, and there's a lot of committee work that people are going to be doing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Do we have any other questions? I just want an economic development document, so the nicer it looks, the more attractive it is.
actually, you raised a good point, Madam Mayor. I would like to put in the budget next year be an advertising tool, so there's someone
Discussion on the issue, all in favor?
I,
Contrary. Allocation of capital. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield reallocate up to $22,000 of the capital for new siding for the front of the community centrum to a structural condition assessment, with the remaining amount of $108,000 to be transferred to reserves and dedicated to new siding for the 22. I have a motion. John, can you give us some background on this, please?
first, I'd like to extend my condolences to the recreation director. Another year of like stability is getting exciting. 40 years, it's generational. If you look at the siding, you can see holes in it. So we do have issues. However, there are a couple of reasons why we're bringing this to council to reallocate the money. One is we put in a grant application with ICIP IDA. Don't remember the acronym offhand. My apologies, council, that's an acronym at you. It's the Inter-Canadian, anyways, Investment Canada Infrastructure Program for the Interprovincial, something like that. Yeah. And I spoke with the engineer because sometimes he may hear something that we don't. They're not at a point where they're making a decision. So we're not, the likelihood of getting it done this year is slim because we're at the end of the year. Now, this is also a good stories. And we don't size are a little bit larger. We've talked about the fact that we're going to hopefully sooner than later have a CFO. We're running out of space. We're running out of storage space and space. We should have a good understanding of what our building can handle and not handle. And so we should put that forward now, and then we can go ahead with some idea of what we're going to do in 22.
Being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is carried. Sorry, Gary. All right, item 15.8, cancel resolution reports that the town of Bay-Westfield receive and file the council resolution reports. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Do you have any questions?
Told us what we were doing, and that we've got 62% completed of 21 goals. And so I'd like to thank the staff for doing this, because this really gave a thumbprint very quickly of where we're heading.
Thank you, Councillor Day. This is reports that are generated by Cascade, which is a software program implemented by the leadership team. John, can you talk a little bit about the reports and system?
Yeah, so first I want to thank our previous council for investing in the software. One of the big issues in this world is there's so much going on, stuff falls through the cracks, and quite often, we may not bring information to council saying, yeah, we've been able to do what you've asked for, and this captures that. So we're still with the software developer to see how we can include utilization rates for our facilities. Other than that, I think there's a lot of the reports that council currently gets that don't think these reports will help us give you better information to make better decisions. I put it that way. However, we need the administration and council as to what should be in, what should be out. And this will take more than one meeting to do that.
Yeah, it'll take a while. I like that you've got every objective and goal and the key performance. And knowing where we are at any given point in time.
And what issues you and your team are facing with the directions we're giving. So I would.
Thank you, Councillor Day. There is no more discussion. Appointments. Growth Agency. Deputy Mayor Aaron Toole to the Greater St. John Regional Facilities Commission. Deputy Mayor Aaron Toole is Chair and Chair of the Strategic Priority Lawrence, Councillor Beverly Day, Committee. Deputy Mayor Aaron Toole to the Municipal Advisory Corporation Committee. Councillor Jim Balcom and Kelly Thompson to the Planning on Anne's Wind to the Safety Labor Management Committee. Continue the appointments of the Substandard Property Appeals Committee consisting of Pete Gallagher-Jett, Bill Watts, Nadia McPhee, and Education. Appoint Mayor Brittany Merrifield to the Funding Regional Services Commission per legislation. Councillor Stephanie McIntosh Lawrence as Chair and Councillor Beverly Day as Deputy Chair of the Strategic Priority Community Vitality. Councillor John Bailmans to Pro Kids. McIntosh Lawrence to the River Valley Community Centre. Councillor John Bailmans to River Valley Seniors. And Councillor at Large supporting, communicating, and liaison each of the strategic. I have a motion. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor. I just want to structure, we have our tentative strategic pillars, and we've reorganized. At this point.
Question, Madam Mayor, the committee, or is it regional committee? I've never heard of it before.
I believe it's a regional committee, isn't that, John?
It's a legislative committee, it's a town committee, our development office.
If there's no further discussion on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded?
To help the CEO on the hiring of the new CFO. If we could just
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Yes, Councillor, are we in consensus that Councillor Day should be the Councillor of hiring commission? All right. Now we're on to 1510. And this is a coalition of communities for inclusion. For UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization is calling on municipalities to join a coalition of inclusive municipalities and to be part of UNESCO's international encourages its members to join. And whereas 3, municipal governments in Canada, along with other levels of government, have responsibilities under Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, as well as federal, provincial, and territorial human rights codes, and therefore have an important role to play in combating racism. Be it resolved that for the town of Grand Bay-Westfield integral part of the municipality's vision, strategy, realization of the common commitments, the municipality will cooperate with other organizations and jurisdictions, including other levels of the municipality will set its municipality will exchange its expertise and share best practices with other municipalities and annual basis on actions undertaken toward the realization of these common commitments. The town of Bay-Westfield, June 28, 2021, authorized the mayor to sign the Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. This came out of the events that happened this week. This past week. Do you have any questions or discussions?
I'm excited to look where we're agreeing to develop our plan of action before annually. So I'm actually really excited on this. I think already we put our focus on community and trying to make decisions that really show this commitment. So I'm really pleased that we'll be reporting on this.
Combat systemic racism within their organizations, towns, and communities. So, do we have any other discussion on the motion? Any questions? Bay-Westfield adopt Articles 47, 50, I have a motion. Today, seconded by Councillor Ballard. Thank you very much. You were integral in helping us put this together. I'd like some background for our people at home.
Yeah, so there's 6 calls to action. I've asked council to adopt 5 this evening. 143 is, it's been years since I've read the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and I'm just a little too foggy to recommend that right now. I want to review the language around it. Number 47 really is to provide annual reports on the current data requested for reconciliation by that council. Again, that's more provincial, federal, but And I'd just like to point out, even our tax policies can be manipulated in such a way as to be discriminatory. So that's just an example. 50 education to all of the town staff, not just the leadership team, regarding the history and legacy of residential schools, the Declaration of Rights on Indigenous Peoples, treaties and whatnot. I just like sources that are available for this. The University of Alberta has one. I think the University of working with us. But it is not said in a nutshell, Madam Mayor, that 6 relevant calls to action for us. Just recommending all the links up to 43 at this time, and I'll bring back 43 no later than the meeting of the 26th of council.
Thank you, John. We
I think
Deputy
it's,
Mayor Chair.
go ahead.
And I just want to say this is I'm really, really pleased that you highlighted 57. And if I gap that public servants at federal, provincial, and municipal levels have in this area. So since we call upon federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to provide education to public servants on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, treaties and Aboriginal rights, Indigenous law, and Aboriginal Crown relations. Racism. So this is something that we can start now. As might have racist undertones, but we don't know that until we know the truth. So I'm really, really happy with this. And I think it's fine. So
Yeah. You made some very important points. So thank you for sharing that.
I think it's important that we recognize our First Nations and children that were torn from their parents and died. And the parents wondered what happened to them. And it went on for generations. My biggest fear is the fact that we did have a residential school and they haven't gotten there yet. And I'm very fearful of how many more deaths we're going to see in this country. And I think it's a sad day in our move forward. And my hope is that down the road, we can come together as a great populace of this country. And it's a sad time now, but we need to learn from the past so we can move forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Want to make the point that when the news came out on last Thursday following the initial discovery of 215 children in British Columbia, I know I'm not the only one that didn't sleep much on Thursday night, and move forward. And I know this council is living by actually taking meaningful action. It's huge. We're leading the way in terms of how and nations all across the country. We see you, we hear you, you're valued. This is important. So this is an important initiative. So, we have any more discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is active reconciliation. Bay-Westfield moved to proceed with providing new Indigenous naming on street signs for both Woolstroke Drive and Nerepus Road in recognition of traditional milestones.
Extra signs, excuse me, it won't be so that we'll have one sign that's in English and one sign that's in the Maliseet. And we're anticipating about $3,000 in costs. Bruce or David, is there anything more that you want to add to what will be happening with this?
I think we're pretty good here on the signs. We'll order them up, and we'll put them up, some will be on top and bottom. I guess it depends on.
Any questions on the motion? Councillor Bell? Any, good, okay, that's great. On the motion,
However, if I may, I would suggest that perhaps we wait until we have more information.
In capital investments of them.
But if I, Commissioner said, that when the flags are returned to full staff, and that perhaps we can flag those up underneath the Canadian flag. We'll check with the protocol officer in Fredericton. But you know, we can find a way to kind of have it up there all the time. That would be, you know, proper procedure.
Thank you, John, thank you, Bruce.
People might not know that when we spend a flag, people are not communicating.
Oh, yes. Out of the town offices today, where we had a local Indigenous community member come and do a smudging ceremony, and we raised the Woldstone flag. So item 6. The Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the request.
Here, we've used some of that up already. Now, regarding donations, a lot of organizations like to ask council for money, and all of them have their own merits. The reason I bring that up is currently there is no policy. There's a grant system for groups to ask council for money that's available twice. Encourage council to receive and file. However, we did receive a request. Transparent how council makes up its mind, who gets money, who doesn't. If you have a grant system, we can come up with a point system so that everybody. No, no.
I have another question. So if I remember last week, we did authorize the money for the Y. So this one, we're just receiving a filing, so not making a decision?
What you may is, we want no further action from administration on this letter, which is no check going forward.
John, can we use this motion to direct you to develop a policy?
You know, we've changed it, yeah, and you just asked me to come back, not this summer, with a, but so that, but to know what we're getting to, and hopefully, like right now, my limited experience here is predominantly schools that get it.
Yeah.
We're just, no, I'll just take it as a direction, and then you'll see in the next report that John's behind already.
Okay. All right, do we have any more questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Item 16. That the council of the town of Bay-Westfield received and filed a request.
So moved.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? I'm waiting for.
And I think it's awesome that there's 912 in there and we're almost at 912.
Council of the town the council of the town of Bay-Westfield adjourned the meeting at 9 p.m. We have a motion.
So moved.
We have a second. Thank you, Councilor Bailman. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned at 9:09 p.m. Thank you, council and staff. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.